evening, everybody, and welcome to another live. This is Ibrox podcast. I'm your host, Adam Robertson. I'm joined tonight by Dylan. How are you getting on, Dylan?
Aye, good. I think we're going to struggle to talk about anything tonight.
Yeah, not much been happening the past couple of days, has it? And I'm also joined by Jamie, who's making his pod debut this evening. How you doing, Jamie? It's good to see you.
Yeah, very well. As Dylan said there, I think we've timed this quite well, haven't we, for speaking after a quiet few weeks. So, no, looking forward to it.
Yeah, not bad. So hold on to your hats, everybody. Rangers have not signed one player. They have officially signed two. So we actually have things to talk about. The first was confirmed yesterday. It is Antonio Colak, who signed from PAOK in a deal worth 1.8 million. Dylan, I'm going to come to you first. How pleased are you that this first deal is over the line?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were quite desperate to have like that first summer signing. I mean, obviously we'd seen John Souttar join up, but again, we've known that since January. But yeah, I'm quite excited because, I mean, despite what the media want to tell you about his time in Greece, he sort of done it in Sweden, done it in Croatia. He seems to have like a good goal record. And I think the thing I'm most excited about is that when reading reports, he doesn't really do well against the top teams, but he does well against kind of like the bottom half teams. And I think that's what we need, because you think about the stupid points we dropped last season against like Ross County, even at home against Motherwell and Hearts. We could boy had done with someone like him up front, to put away those chances. He seems like a better finisher than Morelos, by what I've seen and by what I've read. And he does sort of play well with his back to goal, which is big plus because that's kind of like how he plays. So if he's half as good as the other Croatian strikers that we had in the past, then we're onto a winner, to be honest.
Yeah, he's certainly following in some famous footsteps. Jamie, I'm coming to you now. He's obviously a very promising signing. And do you think, aside from anything else, it's good to just calm the nerves of maybe a lot of fans? I'm not suggesting that we should just sign players for the sake of signing them, but there was some concern over the lack of activity prior to this past 24 hours or so.
No, yeah, I agree. I mean, you can see where the nervousness is coming from. I think last season, we were expecting to make a couple of signings early doors to get us ready for the Champions League qualifiers, which, as we all know, didn't go our way. I think only for the start of last season, really, the Lundstrom and Sakal that came in that were going to potentially enhance things. So I think that's where I think the nervousness has come. Obviously, Colak coming in is I just think he ticks the box for everything that we were looking for. As Dylan's just touched on then, we needed someone who can put the ball in the back of the net against the lower sides. I think our game plan in Europe can't change. I think that the fast-paced attack will work really well. But when we're creating 20, 30 chances a game and only scoring one or two, we've got to make sure next season we're scoring more goals and putting teams to bed in the first half, where and when possible. So, no, I'm really pleased with it. I think he's saying all the right things as well, as you'd expect. No doubt we've been given a wee bit of a script, but if he can come and do well, as Barisic has proved, the Croatian camp do look to Scotland for players. So if he can do well, the World Cup's obviously just around the corner. So with a wee bit of luck, he'll perform and do well.
Yeah, always a motivation for players. He's been described by a penalty box striker. We had the first comment come in there talking about how he hopes that how we hope that he can adjust to life quickly. And Dylan, I think that he's already got a huge chance to impress, and I would go so far as to say even potentially cement his place, if not necessarily in the starting 11, certainly as someone who's going to get a lot of minutes, because we know that Kemar Roofe hasn't travelled to Portugal for pre-season, and we also know his injury record anyway. Alfredo Morelos is still going to be working his way back to full fitness. So, he's really come in with a chance to just make himself the number 9 from the beginning.
Oh, yeah, totally. I think with him saying, I don't think he signed with him being happy to be the third choice or the fourth choice striker. I think he's there to compete. And, he does offer something different. And yeah, I mean, as much as like Roofe is injury prone, and obviously Alfie, I think he's a wee bit off fitness right now. So again, it's a real good chance from early doors to sort of show his fans and the team what he's capable of, and hopefully he can sort of provide competition for Morelos, because I think competition in his squad is only a good thing, because again, you're going to get the best of all players involved. So yeah, it's a big chance for him, and the fact that he sort of settled in well in Sweden and Croatia, and he did sort of score some goals in Greece as well. So I have no doubt that he'll settle into Scotland quite well. But yeah, he's got a good chance to really cement his place.
Yeah, and Jimmy, just before we move on from Colak, because I know that in fairness to the big lad, he's already provided this podcast with about 2 weeks of content, which is always, so he's already making an impact at the club before he was even here. But he's obviously spoken in his interview, he's following in the footsteps of Dado Perso. That YouTube video of him on the crutches never fails to bring a tear to my eye, and Nikica Jilovic as well, obviously, who both did a hell of a job up front. So he's saying all the right things, and it's just really seems like a really positive guy in addition to the squad.
Yeah, no, as you say, I think he's got everything that we've kind of needed for a wee while is a good physical number 9. I mean, how many times have we just crying out? Sometimes we will do all the nice football in and around the box, and sometimes it just needs rolled in, one touch and bang. I mean, without jumping back too much in terms of the goals he scored against us, I don't think we've had many players in our squad that can score them type of goals. And I'm not signing up for this nonsense that the scouting departments aren't doing much if we're just looking at players that have played against us. Because if that was the case, how many teams have we played in Europe over the last 4 years? We're ruling out a hell of a lot of players. So, and obviously other players that we play off domestically. But no, I think he'll come in do well. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see what style of play. I'm sure we'll get to that later on in the show in terms of whether we're going to go with the wingers who are going to look to try and feed the box early, as we did a few years ago with Candias and Kent. But no, if the good thing is, even last season, we were creating lots of chances. It was just the concern was we weren't finishing them. I know Rangers put a sneak little video up before in the training session of him curling one into the top corner with his left foot, which was always nice to see. So, no, I'm looking forward to seeing him. I think if he can settle well, get a couple of goals under his belt in pre-season, hopefully get a wee glimpse of him tomorrow, given the fact he's already played a couple of pre-season friendlies. So you'd like to think he's a wee bit more up to speed than maybe some of the other guys. So, no, looking forward to seeing him and see where he goes.
Yeah. Well, we've gone from transfer famine to feast, really, because Tom Lawrence also signed earlier today. His last club was Derby. He was available on a free transfer. He was also linked with Sheffield United, but has decided in the end to sign for Rangers. Dylan, what did you make of this? I'll be completely honest, it took me by surprise in the sense that up until last night, it wasn't really something I was aware of. He wasn't a player I was aware that was on Rangers' radar. Certainly seems like a talent, but also I would suggest all but confirms Joe Aribo's departure officially, more or less. But yeah, just what are your initial thoughts on the signing?
Yeah, I can remember seeing his name kick about on Twitter a few times. I'll be completely honest, I don't really know too much about Lawrence. Again, as I don't know too much about Joe, apart from reading articles and watching videos online. So when I checked YouTube yesterday to search for videos, he seems like he's really good at creating chances in the box when there's just so many defenders around him, whether that be to set up someone, create a chance, or shoot for himself. So, I'm quite excited for that quality, and also he does score a few screamers. He does like a long shot, so I think. I don't think he'll be as good as Aribo. I think it's quite hard, but again, I'm willing to give him a chance. I did think that he was going to play in the right wing, but kind of being up on wing, he prefers playing the left wing, but he can play off the strikers. So again, I think he'd be a good addition, especially as Aribo all but confirmed to be going. But I'm quite excited to see what he's like. But I probably will give him a bit of time because obviously he played for Derby last season and they did struggle to get his relegation. And if Lundstrom's anything to go by last season is just give players time and give them time to adapt. So I'm quite excited to see what he can offer us, and hopefully he'll be a big success.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that point about the relegation in a wee moment. But Jamie, just turning to yourself, I think one of the biggest things that sticks out for me about Lawrence, reading up on him, is his versatility. And I would argue that will be what Rangers will miss most from Joe Aribo, aside from a first touch, which is laughable. I think that Lawrence can play. I think the left is his preferred position. I wouldn't go so far to say he's an out-and-out left winger. It's more a kind of wide number 9 in that sense. But that versatility is going to be important, I think.
Yeah, no, 100%. And if you think about the amount of games that we play throughout the season, I mean, I'm not sure what it finished up last season, probably 60, 70 odd in terms of numbers, but he's come from a league as well where there's a lot of games. So I think that's what they have, 44 league season or 44 league game season plus the cups and stuff. So I think he'll hopefully be robust and set up for that. I mean, I think the fact that Rooney's given the captaincy, there was a lot of experienced players there as well, probably shows that he's probably maturing. I know he's had a few off the field problems and on the field problems. It wasn't until today I was doing a bit of digging into his kind of disciplinary, and you see that he's had like 50 odd yellow cards. Now for a left winger, it's quite impressive. So, but no, I think he'll bring that little bit of nastiness as well, which I think we've missed for a while. How many times have we were watching a game and you just said, just bring him down or just kick him? Do you know, like, whereas if you can be a wee bit too nice, I mean, Aribo, Kamara, cracking footballers, as you say, great first touch, great moving the ball, joy to watch. But sometimes you just need someone to put the boot in a little bit. So, I mean, I think anyone who's coming up from the championship, I think is going to be made. It's got to be durable. I think we've had a couple where the likes of Bakuna, when he's come up last year, the season before, can't even remember he was that insignificant. But when he come up, it was almost a case of you could see he was a rabbit in the headlights and showed flashes of magic. I think this lad's going to be slightly different given the amount of games. I think he was just shy of 200 championship appearances. I think he's got 35 goals and 25 assists I read earlier. So I think he'll definitely bring something a little bit fresh. Funny enough, watching his goals back and his highlighted there, it did remind me from someone from the dark side as well. So like, I remember when Chris Commons came up the road, it was almost the case of he's just going to come up and be a squad player. But I think he goes to see how teams sit so deep in Scotland. If you're 2-footed and you can get shots away, you're going to score goals. If not, you're going to cause havoc. So especially if you've got penalty box strikers like Morelos and like Colak, be looking for these rebounds and stuff. So no, I think it's only positive, and we'll see how he goes.
Yeah, Jamie, I'm just going to stick with you for a minute because I think that was an interesting point you made. I think Lundstrom has been a perfect example of this. That I don't want to kind of oversimplify things, but measured aggression is a very, very useful asset, particularly in Scotland.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, 100%. We've got to find the balance because, as we know, we're just got to take Alfie for example. If the opposition fans decide that they want the referee to book someone, they're up in the thousands or the hundreds in certain stadiums that won't allow a bigger away section. But it's almost a case of just needs to curb it, pick his moments, do it at the right time. And if he comes flying in the first few games and he's got a couple of yellows and even dare say a red, the referees will be looking for it. The opposition fans will be looking for it. So as long as he's cute, but you'd like to think after last season and the extra responsibilities that he's had, he'd have learned from that. As you said, Lundstrom didn't help himself in the early qualifying rounds against Alkshire, was it? He's got, as long as he learns from that, but you'd like to think there's enough experience in the dressing room and that get their arm round and then set the expectations early doors. And another one, if he can come in and have a half decent pre-season, probably signed at the right time. And the fact he'll get a couple of days training with the lads now, and then we'll get to see him probably next week in Blackpool now. I think probably tomorrow will be slightly too late for him, but look forward to hopefully seeing him on a sunny day in Blackpool next week. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, look forward to seeing him. Dylan, I wanted to come back to your point. Not that you were necessarily saying this, but I've heard a few people say, he's come from a relegated club. Now, just to pick an example out the air, John Lundstrom, I believe, was signed just after Sheffield United were relegated. And you look at the Premier League recently, Man City signed Calvin Phillips, I believe. Now, Leeds weren't relegated, but I'm just making the point that just because your club has had a poor season, and let's face it, Derby had a poor season for multiple reasons. If anything, I actually thought they probably did themselves a bit of credit sometimes the way they performed on the pitch. So I don't really think that anyone who maybe says that just because he's come from a relegated club, I don't think he's necessarily due a lot of criticism for that.
No, definitely. I mean, you sort of look at Derby, they had that points deduction and a lot of the players left. So they were kind of up against it. And, again, I didn't pay too much close attention to the championship admittedly, but kind of from the outside looking in, they did give it a fair old crack, and they were probably unlucky because I think they got relegated in within the last few games of the season. So I think they all had 15-point deduction to start
something
off with.
Like that. Yeah,
it was some crazy.
Heck of a mountain to climb, whatever it was. Yeah.
Aye, and I think they were kind of unlucky from what I've seen. But I think even then he had a really good season for Derby. I think he had something like 11 goals and so many assists. So that's a team that, were kind of shell-shocked by it all. Obviously they're still looking for a new owner and stuff like that. And he still sort of contributed, and the fact that you had Ryan Rooney who trusted him with the captaincy, and I think that sort of speaks for him because I think he knows what a leader is because he played at such a high level. So, and the fact that he did get a captaincy at a middleweight at a big club, even though they have suffered recently, they're still like a massive club down there, in my opinion, especially big fan base. So I think the fact that he got a captaincy sort of speaks volumes. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think a team's relegation should automatically mean that this player's poor or this player contributed towards relegation, because this simply isn't the point. Even look at the other side, in Glasgow, the Greek striker, he played for a side that got relegated from a Greek top flight, and he came over here, did a job for Celtic. So based on that argument, I don't see any reason why that should hold Lawrence back, but hopefully he can sort of bring him the mental resilience, because obviously it was a tough time down there. So hopefully that will stand him in good stead.
Yeah, I think the Rooney captain, giving him the captaincy point is very good, because I mean, if anything, he played under some of the best captains to ever play the game. So it's definitely a mark of huge trust from there. Jamie, coming back to yourself, just one last thing on Tom Lawrence. Where do you think he's going to fit into this Rangers side? Because obviously that right wing spot is crying out for somebody to make it their own. He's not necessarily a right winger, but if he maybe could make that position his own, or do you feel there is still investment needed in that area of the squad?
Yeah, it's a real tricky one, because the straight answer is go out and try and get a good right winger. But what we can't do is sign a player that's going to detract from what Tavernier gives us. So, I mean, I can see him potentially coming in on that high right, but almost tucking in a hell of a lot, so cutting inside, not making the midfield, obviously out bossing the midfield, which then allows Tavernier to get up and down. I think we spoke about it a few times, and I think all the Rangers fans groups are talking about it, and I said it earlier, we need more goals. So the fact that if he can come in and deliver into double figures, I don't think any of our midfielders, you could probably add all the numbers together, including Ryan Kent, and we probably didn't hit the double figures last year. So if he can come in and give us that, and that's going to be a great basis. It just depends on what formation we're going to play as well, and what the opposition set up like. We did see it with Van Bronk, was a Motherwell at home in the early doors when Lundstrom started at centre half, and then 5 minutes later he's reassessed the situation and things got moved around. We might be in for one of them seasons again. We might potentially. I mean, our team it's uncanny how it would suit a 3-5-2 with the personality we've got with the ball playing centre halves. The wing backs do their best stuff going forward. So, I mean, if that type of shape then materialises, you can afford to have him as a free role in a midfield three. Again, Ryan Kemp can play that role. Hadji can play that role, albeit we're not going to see him for a wee while. So, I think he'll be in and around, certainly in and around the squad. You'd like to think he'd have been, given the season he had last year, he'd have been offered to get a decent moves, probably top end Championship, potentially bottom end Premier League. And he'd have been looking for game time. He's not going to be coming up here on buttons, so he's going to be coming up here for a decent wage. So last thing, I can't see the board bringing somebody in who's going to be warming the bench on, I don't know, 20, 25 grand a week, whatever it'll be. So, it's going to be an interesting one. I think all eyes on pre-season will all turn into tacticians overnight as we're watching, and we're going, why is he playing that side? What's he doing? So we'll give him a chance and see how he goes. But no, as I said earlier, looking forward to seeing him and where he does decide to land on the pitch.
Yeah, just picking up on Hadji there. Last I read, I believe he was with the squad, but he was heading back to Holland to complete his rehab. So little unsure of the time frame on his return. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, but we do look forward to seeing him back. Dylan, something that I think the Tom Lawrence signing is providing, though, is just sort of clear squad depth, and it's maybe a bit of a kind of strenuous link, but I think players that will benefit from that, somebody like Fashion Sakala, for instance, if there is more availability on that right, it should mean that he is now out and out backup to Ryan Kent on that left-hand side, where I think he can be quite effective statistically. I think he got 13 goals last year, and he doesn't take penalties, and he didn't get a huge amount of minutes. For someone that got 13 goals, I think that was a decent return. So it's good to start seeing clear competition emerging, particularly in the areas of the squad where it was most needed.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, every day, kind of what I said, healthy competition is only going to be beneficial for us, because the players will perform to the best of their ability. Of course, we'll still have certain players that will be nail-on starters in the squad, but again, it sort of gives them extra incentive to sort of make sure they keep that place in the squad, because let's just say Kent doesn't perform well and then Fashionaka comes in, scores goals, gets assists, then Kent's place under the team is under threat. So it's a good way to look at it that way. And again, with the Lawrence signing gives us more options. He could play on the right wing, and you can try and sign someone on the right wing. That way, you got two players for that position, and of course, you kind of got behind the striker. So again, you could play Hadji, Kamara, Lawrence there as well. Can even push Kent in the middle if you want to do so. As long as we just sign the right type of players who aren't just going to be there to be bench fills, essentially. So hopefully we can sign more players like that, and hopefully we can just see sort of more squad competition, and if a player were to be injured, then they can come in and cover it no problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, exciting times ahead with the two new signings. Moving on to tomorrow, Rangers are taking on Sunderland following their promotion from League One back up into the Championship in a pre-season friendly. Jimmy, I mean, it is just a friendly. It's hard to read a huge amount into or even preview, but it's always good to see the lads back out on the pitch and just get an idea of maybe players who've grown in confidence or players who are really looking sharp ahead of the new season.
Yeah, I'm sure if we're not 3-0 up in the first 15 minutes, they'll be on Twitter now. But no, as you say, it's I think tomorrow is going to be just give the players a chance just to blow some of the cobwebs off. Obviously, we had the game up at the Auckland Highway a couple of weeks back at Training Centre. That will give a few a chance just to, blow the cobwebs off and see where we're up to. But I'd like to see everyone getting minutes. I would like to see us trying a couple of different shapes as well in terms of positions. That was one thing under Gerrard. I mean, I remember going to a few of the pre-season games last year, and I remember being at Tranmere Rovers, which fortunately for me is only 5 minutes down the road. So I remember going to that, and I remember one of the lads, Dodgy, said this is going to be a long season. And you can kind of see, when I say long, I didn't think it was going to take us all the way to Seville, but you could see that we did look very rigid at the start of that pre-season, and we didn't seem to have much imagination, much outside the box. I'm really looking forward to Van Bronk getting time with the players. I think Arfield said in one of his interviews with Rangers TV the other day that we're doing a lot more ball work straight away, and a lot of time on the pitch as opposed to the fitness side of things. I mean, the fitness side of things was fantastic last year. If you think of the couple of double headers that we had and going into the semi-final after 120 minutes in Europe against them and stuff. So I think lots of minutes. I think would be good. Good to see how Colak settles in. Hopefully get a wee bit of a flavour for him, and just see how we go. Really, I don't imagine Sunderland should be too much of a threat. I think this is their first game. I think I read the other day, so don't imagine them to be too far ahead of us in terms of fitness. But I just hope we utilise the pre-season to get us ready for these Champions League qualifiers. I mean, no disrespect to any of the players last year, but I remember watching like Brandon Barker running around in pre-season training. I think he got a handful of games, and there was a few players last year who got lots of game time, and we all knew that they weren't going to be there a few weeks later. And there was lads sitting on the bench. I mean, Lundstrom, for example, should have got more minutes in pre-season last year to get his fitness up, because he eventually showed what he could do once he had a few minutes in the locker. So, plenty of minutes for the players that are going to be there next season is important for me, and hopefully get a chance to see a couple of the young lads as well who we think are going to be in the squad. Not necessarily young lads that we know that are going to be in the B team next year, but the likes of your Kings, your Lowrys. We can get these guys some minutes as well. Yeah, so we're not throwing them in and we're relying on them. Let's make sure they can get in, they get a good feel for how we play, the shape, learn a bit more about them and what they're good at, what they're going to bring, and how they can influence things moving forward.
Yeah, Dylan, I think Jimmy makes a good point there about how it's a chance to really implement different styles and experiment with them, because I think Van Bronckhorst spoke about this himself in the interview with Sky, that coming in November wasn't ideal despite the incredible season that they ended up having in Europe. But, he's shown how flexible a manager he is. And you would imagine that if he was able to implement that just from week to week since he came in, then it's going to be even better. The players are going to have an even better understanding of what he wants from them, having spent a full summer with him, completely completely uninterrupted, no outside noise, just them and the manager, and a chance to experiment in games where, for once, probably the only time if you're a Rangers player, it genuinely doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think obviously that's the goal of the pre-season, not only to get the fitness up, but just to get the feel, but the tactics. Again, what Jamie said, this players get used to how they play with each other. So the example was John Lundstrom, and we can all remember at the start of the week campaign, he struggled because I don't think he really knew how to play with, play in the midfield. Didn't really get the players he was playing with, so he did struggle. But of course, he picked it up. Obviously, you're kind of hoping that with the likes of your Colaks and your Lawrence, they would be able to get a feel of like, right, this is how the team plays. I won't be like a deer in the headlights almost. Even if they make a mistake tomorrow night, by all means, does really mean nothing, because the aim is to kind of get a feel for the tactics. I think we've seen in Europe how tactically flexible Gio can be, even experimenting in the weekends by playing James Tavernier at centre back just to move him back to right back after so many minutes. So I think he'll sort of tinker with the side to see what the best formation is, because he's right, it's quite hard to sort of implement a style halfway through a season, especially at that point when Rangers were still sort of struggling to get a first gear, it seemed. Hopefully we can get the season up and running by Cole Livingston. The players know what to do. We get a good feel for the tactics, and more importantly, as fans, just know what to expect, really.
Yeah. Lads, a comment came in there. I think it might have been from Reese. I just caught the name there, and we've only got a few minutes left. So I just want to kind of ask both your thoughts on it. Jamie, I'll come to you first. He was essentially saying that Colak and Lawrence, when they are both fully fit, don't get into Rangers' strongest 11. Now, obviously, we've not seen a huge amount of them yet, other than our own research and YouTube showreels, etc. But what are your thoughts? I mean, I think also you have to consider the injury record. It's, saying when we have a fully fit squad with the current set of players isn't necessarily always going to happen.
Yeah, I think to be fair, it's probably a backhanded compliment and the testament of we have got a really good side. Let's not kid ourselves here. Do you know what I mean? You don't go and beat Borussia Dortmund away from home and beat RB Leipzig as well as we did and as comfortable as we did, if we're being perfectly honest. Yeah. We're not a bad team. Let's not forget that. I think sometimes we run ourselves down a wee bit. Let's be honest, in terms of the league, it was moments of madness that threw it away. You could easily have put 9 points onto that team last season, 9 points onto that league campaign, no bother. The amount of goals we conceded in the last 90 minutes, post 90 minutes, was absolutely ridiculous. So I think there's more psychological stuff needed as opposed to a starting 11 improvement. I mean, if you go through our starting 11, if somebody can tell me a position that we're weak, other than that right-hand side, where I think we're all a bit unsure as to what type of player that we want. But I say, let's not beat ourselves up here and think that we needed to make mass changes. I think it was we just didn't have the luck on our side at times last year. There was obviously a few goalkeeping errors, which we've discussed in length previously.
Let's not go into them again.
I know. I don't want to start that off with a few minutes to go, but it's almost a case of, if we can cut out them silly mistakes and be a wee bit more ruthless and get more goals in and about the team, then I think we'll be all right. I honestly do. I can't see us. I'm not going to start making any wild predictions that we're going to go the season undefeated and all that carry on, but I would say we're looking strong. We're looking good. I say as long as our players can be a wee bit more durable than what they were last year. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know what everybody else's opinion of, but I think we were a striker away from winning that, winning the Europa League last year. I think if Morelos had been playing, a fully fit Roof, which we dare say we didn't have, even if we'd have had a Jermaine Defoe, I honestly think we'd have caused uproar, albeit Aribo took his goal well, but other than that, wasn't really involved. So no, I think the word ruthless is what we've got to start, and I'd like to see us doing it early doors. I'd like to see us matching them for goals scored as well as goals conceded next year. And filling the team with more players who can score goals, I think, is the right thing to do. But I think in terms of the money that you'd need to spend to increase our starting 11, I think you're going to be looking at top money, because we're not going to change any of the back four. We know that we've got a 20 million plus left back. We wouldn't swap Tavernier. We've got a great choice of centre halves. Ryan Jack, John Lundstrom are more than good enough for the Scottish Premier League and in Europe, as they proved. And then you've got Alfie up top, Kent one side. There's only one or two places up for grabs. So unless we're going to go and spend that 6, 7, 8 million pounds, then we've got what we've got. So I think we're just trying to enjoy it, and as I say, hopefully put teams to bed in the first half a bit more next season.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen, obviously, if what's going to happen in terms of if there is a big money signing in inverted commas. Obviously, there's a bit of debate around the structure of the Joe Aribo deal. So I believe it is a 10 million release clause, but it's more could potentially be a case of as long as 10 million is met at some stage. And let's face it, a player with the talent of Joe Aribo, it would be no surprise to see him potentially go for 25 to 30 million should he play well at Southampton in a couple of years. Dylan, just to kind of round us off there, what are your thoughts on the comment that came in there about, they maybe don't get into the starting 11 when they're fully fit?
Yeah, I think it's quite hard because obviously we haven't really seen them in action, so it's quite hard to make that call, in my opinion.
Where would you like to see the money spent? Say the money came in for Joe Aribo, and plus, I'm not sure, maybe there's a bit of money left over or money from the Nathan Patterson sale. Would you rather see that invested in maybe a few players to really have depth at a really strong level, or would you rather get in, say, a big money right winger?
See, that's quite a hard one. I think I would like to see money spent on a right wing, because I think that's always, not even in recent season, for as long as I support the club, it's always just seemed to be an issue, because I just think it's, you know what I mean? You just try to think of like the best right wingers, and you just think you're kind of struggling, because even the best ones you can think of, boy, aren't even good enough to play for this side now. So, yeah, I mean, personally, I want money to be spent on the right wing, because I think that's been a problem for us in the last few seasons. I think, other than that, we've got a perfectly rounded squad. Like, I don't want us to just spend money just for the sake of spending money, because we want to make sure like that right winger has the attributes to succeed, both technically and mentally. So it'd be good to have like a Ryan Kent on the right wing, a player like that. But again, those players cost big money. So as long as we spend well within our means, I don't overspend, because I think unfortunately we know what it's like, that we just sort of overspend. Spend money that we don't have, and then suddenly we're in trouble. So as long as we sort of spend well within our means, we also seen kind of like the scouting department, there's been improvements there recently, so hopefully we can get a few gems uncovered, and hopefully we can perhaps get a few youngsters as well, give them some game time. But if you're asking me where I want money to be spent, on the right wing, and then maybe on one or two players, but if we can get that covered, then I would say we're more or less ready to go for the season.
Yeah, I think just from my own point of view, one thing that I always think it's worth remembering, and I know I'm probably guilty of using extreme examples at times, but even the best teams in the world, there is always a suggestion that they need one more thing. Man City are a prime example. Everyone banged on about how they need a striker. You look at Liverpool, everyone's saying they needed a midfielder, and these are incredibly successful teams. Now, yes, Rangers aren't maybe going to be, but they were in a European final last year. I think that no matter where you are as a team, there is just naturally always going to be debate over a certain position. And for Rangers, at this moment in time, it does just happen to be the right wing. So remains to be seen what will happen with that. But the main thing is we have signed 2 players, and it's given us half an hour's worth of content. So I apologise to the lads on the Monday and the Wednesday bulletins that I managed to sneak in both signings there. Jamie, thanks very much for joining us. Hopefully you'll come again soon.
Yeah, cheers. No, thanks for having me, and best of luck for the players tomorrow.
Yep, thanks as well, Dylan.
Absolute pleasure, Adam, as usual.
Perfect, folks. We are also on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, so please do go on there and give us a follow and a like. Make sure to like this video as well and subscribe. Thanks very much for listening, and we will see you all again soon.